Hi, I'm Mindy, the natural dyer at Henlia Handmade. Welcome to our little knitting chair chat. I have my weekender light. I have one full sleeve done, and I just started my second sleeve. The Weekender Light is by Andrea Mowry, and it is made with fingering weight yarn. This is my second one. I made an extra long sleeve. If you caught my episode about my sweater audit, I'll link that. But I made my sleeve extra long this time, so we'll see how it goes. This yarn is I can't remember what it's called, but the colorway was naturally dyed cochineal insects on a light gray yarn base, and I'll have to look up what the name of this colorway is called. Anyway, I'm getting close to the finish line on that, and I'm excited. So today we are talking about natural dyes, what they are, why I choose to use them, and how long they really last. Okay, so story time. Once upon a time, I believe I was in middle school, I was required to do a science fair project. This was a requirement for my school science program. 4th grade on up through 8th grade, I went to a school that was K to 8, and it was a big deal. Science fair was a big deal. So by the time I was in middle school, I had done a few of these science fair projects. We spent what felt like months and months and months coming up with our idea, researching, testing, drawing up our conclusions, and then, of course, making our big fancy displays for the actual science fair. Well, my project this particular year was using food products to dye cheap cotton yarn. I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember using red cabbage, onion skins, and I know I had one or two others that I tested as well. And of all the science fair projects, of all 5 of the science fair projects that I did as a child, this was the one that I was most excited about. In fact, I kind of dreaded the science fair project because it was such a big deal and there was so much pressure put on it. But of all of my projects that I did, this was my favorite one. And it was just my favorite one. I even went to like the state science fair. I think that was in 8th grade. But this one beats them all because I just remember being so fascinated by the process, how I could take food items that were just like everyday items in my kitchen and transform this plain yarn, and it turned into something beautiful. I also remember knitting up a tidy little granny square, or not, crocheting rather. Whew, that was a big mistake. Crocheting up a tidy little granny square of each of my finished yarns that I dyed. And those, I'm proudly gluing them on my science fair project boards. Oh, Mom. The idea for the project was totally my mom's. So Mom, I'm sure you had no idea what road that would take me down as an adult. But I have her to thank for the whole thing. So while I don't have my project anymore, of course that was many years ago, I do find myself occasionally wondering about those granny squares and what they would look like today. I can't remember my process. but I'm guessing it didn't involve a mordant to properly adhere the dye to the yarn. And that's probably a topic for another day, but I would love to see it. And that was my introduction to natural dyes. Plant dyes, natural dyes, if you're not 100% certain, are dyes that are created from harvesting pieces of nature. I frequently refer to them as natural dyes for this reason, but also because I don't exclusively use plants, I do also use insects. Plant dyes, natural dyes, are created from flower petals, roots, tree leaves, and a couple insects. So, these are the reasons I love to use them. I love that I can take nature and create something incredibly beautiful with it. I can grow some of my own natural dyes, and the dyes that most yarn made with synthetic dyes require a lot of natural resources, such as water, to create, and they also produce a lot of waste that for many, many, many years, hopefully not anymore, the waste was just dumped into our waterways. So I don't want to propagate the pollution of our waterways, right? So also the resulting powdered dyes are actually quite harmful to breathe as well. So natural dyes, I don't have to worry about those things. I do sometimes use the mask when I'm during certain parts of the dye process, but I don't feel like it's critical for my health. It would just be if I had some sort of maybe if I already had a lung thing going on, a cold or something. But with natural dyes, you just don't have to worry about it as much. So, while natural dyes can also negatively impact our environment, for example, by over-harvesting certain plants, flowers, even the insects, right? That's all part of we need all those parts for our ecosystem to thrive. I still strongly believe that what nature has to offer us is far better for us than our woman-made dyes, at least for the time being. Okay, so I want to address one last thing today. It's a question that I expected to get asked frequently when I first started Henlia Handmade, but it actually hasn't come up as often as I would expect. The question is, will the color of my yarn wash out or fade quickly? There does seem to be, at least online, a stigma of natural dyes just not lasting as long as the man-made counterparts, also known as acid dyes or synthetic dyes. And my answer to this depends on which natural dyes we're talking about, as well as the dyer. So for Henlia Handmade, I choose to use almost exclusively natural dyes that have been scientifically proven to last beyond the typical usage of an item. So generally speaking, fruit, for example, is not a proven dye, natural dye that should be used for long-term use in, say, cloth or yarn. While it's fine to play with in your own kitchen, for my business, I choose not to use something like fruit because, fruit, right? It stains our clothing. It doesn't make a good natural dye because let's look at this example. Okay, say you're diving into a delicious marionberry pie. I chose marionberry because marionberries are from Oregon and they're kind of like blackberries. They're sort of a blend of blackberries and raspberries, if you're not familiar. But big, juicy, plump purple red berry, right? So imagine you're diving into this delicious marionberry pie. You're wearing a cotton t-shirt. And in an unfortunate moment, marionberry pie splatters across the front of your shirt. Okay. You run your shirt through the washing machine a few times before, just kind of giving up. The stain is still there, but you can't get rid of it. So you could think, oh, maybe marionberries would make a good dye. Well, before conceding that you have lost your shirt to that delicious moment, let's take a look at this again. Okay, so what do the stains look like now? Do they still look like that red, purpley, beautiful berry color? Or does it now look like gray-brown, kind of a muddled color? Okay, be surprised if you said it still looked bright red, bright purpley red. Because unless a dye has specific qualities to withstand light, friction, and fading, washing, I said light, washing, it's just not going to stick around well. Most also need a mordant, which I briefly touched on earlier, and that's also a critical part of natural dyeing for most dyes. Okay, let's take one more example. Let's go step into a historical museum. Have you ever noticed the old preserved clothes, rugs, other textiles that, you might see when you're walking around a historical museum? Have you ever stopped to wonder how those clothes, those textiles were dyed? Say, before the late 1800s. So if my memory serves me, I believe synthetic dyes began to surge in popularity around the 1900s. I think they were first discovered kind of mid-1800s, but then they didn't really start becoming popular until the 1900s. So you can assume any textiles you see in a museum that predate, say, 1900, are going to be dyed with natural dyes, or were dyed with natural dyes. So I'm going to try to insert some photos here of some antique rugs that I found through just a quick little Google search. And you'll see that the colors are still vibrant and beautiful. And they had to have been dyed with natural dyes. Natural dyes are just really cool. Now, while I won't say that natural dyes don't fade at all, because all dyes do fade some, I think that there's definite proof that when the correct dyes are chosen, ones that have been tested to withstand the test of time, also adhered properly to the yarn or cloth, and of course taken care of gently, natural dyes can last well beyond the normal usage of whatever item you're making with it. Now, I'm even confident in saying that many natural dyes would work well for heirloom pieces. And those rugs are a perfect example, right? And they would even outlast some of the synthetic dyes that we have now. If you're interested in finding out more about the science behind natural dyes, I'd encourage you to pick up this book here. It's called The Art and Science of Natural Dyes by Joy Bouthrop and Catherine Ellis. It's quite. I'll include a link for you, but it's quite scientific. So while I might not recommend this as maybe your very first natural dye book, if you're just wanting to play in your kitchen a little bit, This book here really gets into the science and more of the technical aspects. They do a lot of, they did tons and tons of testing and came up with, their list of dyes that are super duper reliable. And these are the dyes from this book that I primarily use at Henlia Handmade, because I don't want you to be afraid that your yarn is going to fade drastically. While they will fade, a little bit, and certain dyes, do more than others. I don't want you to be worried that your yarn isn't going to last and look beautiful for many, many years to come. So if you really want to deep dive into natural dyes, that's your book. And I'll put the link down below. Okay, so that's all I have to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed learning a little more about natural dyes. And if you enjoyed our knitting chair chat today, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel if you would like to be notified when I put out more videos like this one. And if you are interested in trying knitting with natural dyes, please check out my shop, henliahandmade.com. I'll include the link below along with another link that will get you 20% off your order. Please put your comments and your questions down below and I will do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching.